Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Melissa, and today we have a fantastic episode lined up for you. I had the pleasure of speaking with Maria, the founder of Derêves, a full-service wedding planning and floral design company based in Toronto, Canada. Today, we'll dive into some key marketing insights that can help you grow your business, whether you're in the wedding industry or any other creative field. Maria came on my radar when I did an SEO search for wedding vendors for a podcast episode I was doing about wedding creatives that get it right, that not only build a solid foundation for a business, but also check all the marketing boxes, knowing who their ideal client is, what their message is, and how that resonates with their ideal client. She checks so many boxes so well that I felt she would be a great guest so that those of you starting a creative business or trying to grow a business could benefit from how she built hers. So let's get started. Welcome, Maria. Thank you so much, Maria, for being here. I'm so excited to have you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And I guess the best place to start is please introduce yourself. Let us know who you are, what you do, and thank you again for being here.
Thank you so much for having us, Melissa. I appreciate it. I'm Maria. I run a full-service wedding planning and floral and design company. So we started Flowers in 2016, 2017, and we expanded into full event design and now planning in 2025. So it's a
so that's fresh. That's new, 2025.
I mean, we were doing it a little bit last year, but now we're full planning. So it's exciting.
Makes sense, though. It goes hand in hand, not to digress, but like, what inspired you in the beginning? Like, can you catch us up to where you are? Like, how are we sitting here now and you're talking about all of this? Where did it all start?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll keep it to the point, but we started with Flowers in 2016, 2017. It began, I'll go way back. I started with an environmental degree in school. And I wanted to do landscape architecture. I was really set on it. So I was supplementing my degree with a college diploma. And across from the classroom in this landscape design classroom at Humber was the floral and design classroom. And that's what captured my attention. And I was just enthralled. I was like, oh my God, anything I can do to get into this. This is what I want. This is so much fun. And I had just graduated university. I was working in mortgages. I didn't really have a career. I was just floating around. So it caught my heart. And I guess it's in the same kind of, I would say in the same realm. We're working with plant materials. There's design, right? So it went from landscape architecture to shifting focus a little bit into floral. Long story short, I promise I'll keep it short.
No, I love it. I find this is fascinating. I love how people come to this moment. Like you said, your heart felt it. So I love that. Keep going. I'm on the edge of my seat.
Thank you. And we weren't thinking of weddings yet. And when I say we, I met my Ava's dad. So foreshadowing, I met my husband at the time, and he owned a marketing company. And he was like, let me help you. Like, let's put a website together. I'll help you with your sales. And he was just a brilliant, brilliant man. Like, he put together our website and helped me with like Excel sheets and the sales funnel and processing and everything I kind of needed to know starting off, because he had owned multiple companies. So he helped me.
Set up with a foundation, which I love to talk about, because I think without a solid foundation, it's really hard to grow a business. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. It really, I didn't go to business school, so I didn't have any background or training in business. I never even thought about what it would take to open my own business. I was just doing it out of the love of flowers. Yeah. I didn't really have a plan. I wasn't going to do, just weddings. I was just happy to create at the time. So that's kind of how that's the path in.
Okay, so jumping back in a little bit, so that is like a really like brief. So you got started. You find this thing that you absolutely love across the hall in college. Your heart knows that this is the direction you want to head in. You start. Your husband helps you set up this foundation for this business, and then what? What's the next step? Where are we then?
Exactly. Now we're like right around COVID time. I was doing it for fun. It was just I loved it. I started doing weddings. And not necessarily back then, it was really easy to put, like $5 towards Facebook ads, and you had leads the next morning. So it was so easy to get out there. Now, I mean, we're all struggling with showing up and SEO and content and what we're doing in order to get those leads and help the clients and couples see, what we and trust confidence. And, it's a very different game. So back then it was really easy to get into weddings because we just got leads. You posted a photo and you're on Instagram, and it just happened. And I was doing it again. It was more of an easy hobby. I mean, I had the brand, the name stayed the same over the years. Fast forward to 2022, something like that, 2021. Something happened. I came face to face with the reality that I was getting separated. So foreshadowing once again, it was time to do something. I looked at my life and I thought, hey, this is something I'm doing for fun. And, I'm not all in. And what would it look like if I, as a single mom, were to do that? And my husband, over time, I mean, we're still, we have a great relationship. And he reminds me, like, you had no identity as a young mom. And I think a lot of women struggle with this. A lot of
Absolutely.
any new moms to begin with. I mean, I was young. A lot of my friends weren't married yet. They didn't have kids. They didn't have businesses. I mean, we were all just out of university. It was very, it was kind of like sprung upon us. And it was all, very new to me. And I didn't really have a direction, a path to go on. I looked at myself and I thought, I have to do something. I have to make a decision, and nobody's going to save me. I have to do this for myself, for my daughter, my career, my path. And I invested my time, and I started from the ground up, like just completely overtaking the whole business almost in a different direction. Like I needed to see what worked, what didn't work. And I needed to make updates quickly, and I needed to make them now. Like I needed to post vlogs and, put up the store, things like that. So I made a new website, Squarespace, a little bit different than the WordPress than they had built me with the marketing agency years ago. So now it all looked different. We were offering more services. We even had a store at a point, like an online store, and we're doing deliveries. Now, so it's transitioned a lot, but it's a lot of also figuring out works, figuring out what doesn't, making quick changes and being able to adapt. A lot of adapting and resilience that it took to get here.
I think resilience is one of the words that I think small business owners like us cannot keep going in a business like this without resilience, or not for the long term anyway.
People quit. That's right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to show up every day. But so bring me back just a little bit, because you say, you found that passion, and you say it's more of a hobby. But then how did you really take that leap?
So it's a lot. Okay. So I feel like I was doing this before I learned about it years later, but it must have been a really like a pivotal time when I decided, and I looked at my life and I thought, nobody's going to save me. I didn't have a backup plan. So this was the burn the boats analogy. It was a book written.
Yes, that was it.
Yeah. And it just said, you can't have a backup plan. And this is why a lot of people who have 9-to-5s and they're trying to grow like a side career, a side gig, this is why they fail, because they know that there's a backup plan, because the
safety net, right?
So there. So you're 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It's not a full commitment. But I had those pressures, and I didn't really have a choice but to wake up and to do it. So I didn't really have another choice. And it's the same with starting a business, from scratch, or even now when, we're faced with all these uncertainties in our industry. I mean, Canada on our end, there's a lot of like the tariffs that are about to be imposed that we think, and all these things, right? Like, and everybody's so worried, but it's just showing up the same way that you had in the beginning. Like, I'm going back to square one. I'm doing introductions with venues. I'm working on the SEO. I'm doing blog posts like never before. I'm showing up, my face. I'm adapting to what the consumer needs to see, right? Which is like a face, and to express and to share and to build a community. So
Yes,
it's
and to have people fall in love with you and to understand what you do. And that brings me to, well, A, exactly how I found you, and B, did you mention something about almost envisioning how your business is going to be or how you had to show up in your business to get it to this point?
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So showing up the way, like envisioning, it's almost, people call manifesting. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. From the beginning, showing up as if you're already there, things like, okay, you are a team actually, because you are hiring freelancers. So it is an entity, not making yourself look small in front of people, showing up from the beginning in the way that you want to be seen. So
Mm-hmm.
doing a lot of that from the beginning, and carrying it out consistently throughout, even years later, just having the same, focusing on a brand image as well, and finding your message, the issue that you're trying to solve in the industry, things like that, finding out what the world needs and how you need to convey yourself to fit in, and to bring your brand out there and and serve people in the way that, for what they need. Yeah.
Exactly. And so how you came on my radar is I was doing, I don't even remember. I think this is podcast number, say 39 or something like that. This may have been 18. I don't remember. I'm going to look it up exactly the episode. But I just did a quick Google search before I started the podcast. I want to find people that have really done their SEO well, and they're showing up and they have a clear message, and just everything you did on your website would be, if someone told you what to do for SEO, it's like check, 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 but in such a great way. And clearly it's working for you. But it was just something that I feel it's a great demonstration of how, when you do things right and and I think you just kind of cover that, like where you put yourself out there, you talk about what it is you do, and there's no gray area. People understand this is exactly what you do. And because sometimes, whether it's floral or wedding photographers, people try to be everything to everyone, and then that means like really nobody understands like who you're for, and there's that confusion. And I think when you land on your website, A, people are finding it because you've done a great job, but B, when they do find it, they understand what you're there for, and I think that's really important.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I didn't mean to cut over you either.
No,
Sorry.
no. And I think that's just something I really want people to understand, that when you do things right, and then, like you said, this is your second website. So you've adapted it, you've changed, you've evolved as a business. So now you're just changing along with it, right? Like what your needs are today.
Adapting, but also having that clear image. And I guess I did have, a little bit of, I'd say, training, because Jordan, Ava's dad, my ex-husband, he did own this marketing company. So I got to see a lot of the back end, a lot of what they did. So it was, it wasn't like new knowledge for me. I had grown up with this just being with him, and seeing this and how much effort goes into the SEO and finding your brand and your voice, finding your voice and having a consistent, a clear message that you're conveying throughout. Like, for example, we're really big on sustainability. Mm-hmm. So having that message pulled through socials to your website, making sure little silly things like from design, everything is cohesive throughout. Your Instagram is the same as your website, and all of your material, your resources that you're sharing with clients, everything is consistent.
That's true. And I think another word for small business owners like us is integrity, like really literally doing what you say you're going to do. So if you're talking about sustainability over here, you're not, then I don't know, whatever the opposite of that would be, demonstrating that. So when you're true to your message, no matter where you are, who you're talking to, what socials they're looking at, it's a consistent brand message. And that definitely helps you stand out from the pack of others that I'm sure you're in Toronto. I mean, you have to have a stack of competitors. It's obviously a testament to, your knowledge, and then putting it into practice and living it up to it every single day. But where did imposter syndrome sneak in anywhere when you were doing this? Like, how did you, because you can do all the things that you said, but was there a point where you're like, am I ready for this? Is this?
Melissa, I didn't have time. I almost didn't.
I love it.
It's the sitting around that gets to you. It's now when we're faced with challenges later into the years, when you've seen what it's looked like, what the industry looked like before and what it's looking like now, now it's very evident, but it's the same message that I had, back then and now. You have to do it. You have to get up and do it. nobody else is going to do it for you. So there's no waiting for the right time. Oh, I'm going to wait until, like tomorrow to post this. I'm just going to write a list. I'm going to plan. You have to put it out there. It's like anything, a creative thought, it exists until somebody else does it before you. You just have to get it out there, and you have to action, and try, because you're never going to know otherwise, as silly as it is. Yeah.
I think that when you are as focused, like you're describing, focused and resilient, that it's amazing what can happen when those two forces come together. when you want something bad enough, I get, maybe it's another way of saying it.
Yes, exactly. This is something that I wish I had figured out before too. Not to say, it was all part of the learning journey, and I'm so glad that, it took the time that I needed to take. But if I had just figured this out before, would have saved, and it would save a lot of women a lot of time, right? Just sitting and pondering, hey, I could start this business. Oh, but I have 2 small children. Oh, but I don't know if I could put all this time into it. But you're the creator. You can decide how much time you want to put into it. If you want to put 90% of your free time into it, go ahead. Let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other beauty of owning your own business, right? You get to pick and choose your hours generally. So even though they can be long. So anyway, right now, like, what is something that, the trajectory looks like it's been pretty good for you, and looking at everything on your website looks fantastic, and your business looks outstanding. What is something that, if you could think of something that you didn't see, that you didn't see coming, or some sort of obstacle that was in your way, or is in your way now, maybe to the next level?
Especially with Floral, I feel like there are a lot of moving parts. With planning, you have more, can I say, like a bird's eye view of everything, but being the thick of it with the studio is challenging in its own. Like, we've had to do installations on like 24-foot ceilings, and like where I had to source my own scaffolding team. Like, I had to call a painter and be like, hey, could you hang this up? Like little small things like that. You have to know where to look, and nobody's there to tell you. That is the hard part. There's nobody there to help you unless you reach out and you ask. But I think that, if we can do our part and help people and spread a message and create a community, I mean, that would have 100% have helped me back then. But in challenges, every day there's something new thrown at you. Every day there's a vendor you didn't see coming, or like a new, for example, I ran into like insurance. Now everybody has to have insurance. Floral is under a mandatory category for insurance in Canada. Like little things like that you find out as you go, and you have to again adapt.
Exactly. And again, it's the same word, resilience. But of all the vendors that I work with in the wedding industry, Flora seemed to be the most resourceful of any that they oh my God, if a bride's wedding dress, her zipper falls apart, I've had the floral designer come in with some sort of something. You're like jacks of all trades. Like when you said you need to call a painter, it's like you guys just figure things out. Like you have so many obstacles thrown at you that we're just there to document it. You're there to create it. And it just seems sometimes the mountains are pretty high that it seems like you have to climb to get your job executed.
I've had to learn how to use a drill. Let's just leave it at that. And pretty good at it too, because you have to.
Yeah, that's good. You're building things like you're doing. It probably started, you love the idea of flowers, and now, like you said, you're
design.
So exactly. So anyway, that trajectory. So okay, just again, I keep having us go back a few steps, but so you start with flowers, and then obviously people probably ask you for more things. And then how does everything else get added in and to where you are now? Like give us an overview of what you were talking about in the beginning of what you're doing now in 2025.
It's so exciting to talk about it, because so we've noticed gaps in the industry, or, challenges that couples bring forward. So a big part of my consultation process is learning, like, what are your challenges? Like, what are you dealing with right now? How is planning going? I always ask this question. I don't know why, but this is kind of how it brings out a
so good. Wow. You are unbelievable. Sorry to interrupt. Keep going.
But it really, I think that's what started everything because I genuinely wanted to know. I just,
Mhm.
I genuinely, I didn't, again, I didn't plan on, doing full event design and all of that. But there are just so many gaps in couples in the industry finding vendors who do everything under one umbrella as being one of them. So when companies are able to provide like video, photo booth planning, amazing. Like any couple would love to take that.
Yeah,
Now,
the less like it seems like couples are overwhelmed with choice, and I think when you make when you make it a little bit easier for them, I'm sure they greatly appreciate that.
exactly. It's the killer of all things, choice. So it's the same on a design aspect. So if you are having to match your flowers now with your linen and your furniture and everything is just it's confusing and overwhelming, right? You want one person, your designer, to be able to bring forward a cohesive vision. And you don't know where to start. You don't know who to message, who to email. You can look it up on Google and find furniture. Then you got to give them color specs, and it's just so much easier to do it under one person. So that's why we've expanded that way. And then planning is just a personal favorite of mine. To be honest, I didn't love it at the beginning, but I realized I was bringing together so many vendors that I was like, oh, I'm really good at this. Like, okay. And I really like, you know
That's
what?
great. When you discover new strengths you didn't even know you had. That's fantastic.
It's again, something I could tell my younger self. So find something that I think it's a Japanese proverb.
Oh,
Um,
ikigai, right? Is that?
yes,
Yes, I love that. Oh, please explain it though, because sometimes I forget the true definition. But I love it.
wrong. Absolutely fact check me, but it's finding something you're good at, finding what the world needs, and something you love, and then something you get paid for. So it's like the circles coming together, and I think the overlap that is,
Overlap. Yep.
yeah, it's the conjunction of all those points, and that should bring you joy and fulfillment in life. And
And is that how you feel like when you're working every week? Where is that? Yeah. I love that.
I love it. I still love it. And I think it's because I've been able to look at something and be like, hey, this is not working. Like our online shop, it's not working. We're going to shut it down. That's enough of that. Just changing course, adjusting the sails. Full of proverbs today, but
Yeah, no, that's good because I think a lot of people think of what is it called? Like the sunk cost fallacy or something where you think you've invested time in creating this online, floral, I forget how you exactly describe it, but this online business, and to scrap it, that's very courageous versus some people would double down and put more time when they know that it's not exactly the right fit for your business. So again, another example of why your business is moving forward is because you take quick action and you recognize, what's not working and keep moving. So that's, I hope everyone's listening closely because you're just like a perfect example of like how a business should be operated.
I'm so glad. I will divulge anything. This is the whole part of, bringing a community together and offering space because it's not easy to come by and it wasn't always offered to me. So if that's the least I can do. Yeah.
I agree. Sometimes, like you said, you have to figure so much out on your own. It's nice if those have already been there, they can just lend, which is sort of the point of me doing this podcast because we've been doing this for 25 years. So if we can't shed some light on photography, obviously we've been in the wedding industry just as long. So it's nice to see that everyone kind of, I'm going to say suffers, but everyone has gone through that and it never ends. No matter how old, how many years you've been doing something, there's always something new to learn. And if people share, it's just, there's enough for everybody. It's just a matter of carving out your niche and how you want to approach it. You mentioned your younger self a minute ago. So what do you wish your younger self knew that you now know? But I think you touched on this, but if you want to elaborate, if not.
It's, you could throw things at somebody who's 18 and say, find what you love and find what makes money and find you could say that to them, but they might not know where to start. I think something that would have helped me altogether is knowing that there are going to be challenges and it's how I behave during these challenges that set me ahead or they set me back. So, establishing routines, working on yourself, right? Finding patterns. Hey, when the seasons turn and it's very slow for weddings, I notice that, there's more time for you to sit around and ponder, why am I doing this? Like negative self-talk, like figuring out what triggers you during what time and how to combat it. So, routines, again, waking up, working out, eating better, silly things that you think are silly, but they actually make a huge difference in the long term. And then not planning, but preparing. So when things are slow, go and, add more blogs, work on your website, perfect your sales process, look at your funnel, organize, make some, update your resources, your booklets that you give clients, meet with venues. So these are all things that I wish I had figured out a little bit earlier and started doing. So it, moments of heaviness didn't weigh so hard on me. Yeah. Yeah.
So talk about that a little bit more. I know some people think blogging is dead, and I would argue with that because I think it's the number one driver of business, especially to our photography business. That even something I wrote 10 years ago, someone, well, I saw this, blah, blah, blah. Because I do go back and kind of weed through and get rid of things that aren't appropriate or whatever, that don't matter anymore. But there's some things like certain venues or certain things that live on. They really still bring people in. And I think the fact that you're talking about that, I think blogging is so important. And I don't think people recognize how important SEO in general. I don't think not every wedding vendor understands the importance. But blogging specifically has such a place, I think.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So much to say about this. Blogging is not dead. And Jordan, my ex-husband who runs his marketing company, this was like, he would die on this hill. He's like, you're not writing enough blogs. You should put out like 3-4 a week, even more. And I was like, this is not going to make a difference. Leave me alone. But it does. And I started doing it, and it makes a huge difference because now you're indexing on Google for all these keywords that you put in your blog. It's a no-brainer. I even started doing landing pages for like Toronto best florist, or I started taking venues in Toronto and making landing pages on our website for like weddings at Casa Loma in Toronto. And now when people look up Casa Loma weddings, guess who pops up? These are all blogs.
You do. That's I love.
Yeah. Sustainable. That's how you found me. It was a blog. Sustainable Floristry. It was like, if you look up sustainable florist anywhere in the world, we pop up. We're like number 2 or something because of a blog. That's all that was.
Thank you. That is so important for everybody listening to hear that, because A, blogging's not dead, but B, the power of it. And especially if you're picking, like you just said, a long tail keyword or a keyword that's going to rank, especially now where sustainable obviously seems to be very prevalent in the industry, that it's very important. So a lot of people are typing in those words, and good for you that you were out ahead of that. And that's why you're popping up for the world to see. So that's fantastic.
It's an uphill battle, but you have to do it. You have to do it.
Well, it's all the pieces, right? This is just one. So obviously we were talking about blogging, we're talking about SEO. You mentioned vendor relationships. So if you, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you could rank like, okay, SEO is number 3 for driving traffic to me, or meeting vendor referrals or client referrals, like what would you say is your number 1 marketing tool, right? Or the top 3?
Yeah, I've had to look into this because again, this is a very slow time in Canada because people don't get married in the winter as much. So I've had to look at our marketing strategy. You got to figure out what your marketing strategy is as a business owner. It's okay if you don't work with an actual marketing team. Like sit down and figure it out. We get a lot of leads from Google. So perfecting our SEO, it was like number 1. Then it's social media. So a lot of leads from social media, but believe it or not, it is much easier to close. This is a no-brainer when I think about it. It's much easier to close a lead who comes from a trusted source, like a trustworthy source, like another venue or, a past bride. They've already kind of made the decision that they're coming with you. They're like, oh, this person already, they were singing your praises and I'm calling you too. So you can put a quote together, but I kind of know what to expect because I've already heard about you. So, I feel like there should be a lot of time invested into relationships. Genuine relationships,
social proof, but
but it's also being genuine. You're being integrity, like having
working with integrity. Yeah,
working with integrity, but also establishing relationships with that same integrity, like honest, truthful, and like loving relationships. Like if there's somebody you really love working with, reach out to them, keep in touch. The same with venues. I've had to email venues that I've really loved working at, or I've had a lot of experience working at, and I'm going for lunch with somebody next week, and they're going to, things like that. It's important because
but to your point, it has to be genuine. And I think so many people, or at least, sorry, I talked right over you, so I'm sorry about that. But at least amongst the wedding vendors that I've worked with over the years, there's a lot that do this in a self-serving kind of way. And of course, the end result, though, you're having lunch with that person because of course you want to work at that venue more often, but you're not going there with that. That's not the sole intention. You actually want to build a relationship. And this isn't one-sided. This is reciprocal because you might refer them, they're going to refer you. And I think that you're approaching it from like you said, to build a genuine relationship, not one like, well, I'm only doing this so that they'll send people my way. And I think that's extremely important, and people don't recognize that. And that shows up for years, that they know you're a real quality person, not just
your work. It's who you are as a person too. But I found that actually, this is mentioned a lot in sales books, that when you ask somebody for a favor, you also have to offer them something first. It's not just, hey, do me this thing. Do me please make all this effort for me, and send over clients while you're at it. So it's not like that. You have to, hey, we'd love to feature you as well. Or, you have to have something that you're also bringing to the table, or showing up with something to offer as well. You can't just ask people to do you favors, right? So it's not, hey, could you do me this solid and send some clients my way? Yes, sure. I mean, they must like your work, but also it's personality and as well what you can offer people in return to. Not that it's transactional, but you're not just asking to take something, right? You're maybe something as easy as like, hey, we're going to make your process a little bit easier. I'm going to give you like a book with pictures from your venue that you can show clients so they can imagine these tables covered in flowers and candles. Like, maybe you have like some printed material that feature that venue, and like, and then if your client asks any questions, here's the process on the back. So you can, because couples show up and they want to know things. They're like, okay, how does this work? How much do you cover? And a florist does what? And like, how will this look? And people have questions, right? So like, let me make this process easier for you. Or here's a link to the page that I featured on your venue, right? Just ways that you can help each other. Not that it's supposed to be transactional, but ways to help each other grow.
Exactly. And they don't have to cost anything either. Just like you said, if I write a blog post about my favorite florist, for example, and that's just to say thank you for doing such a great job at a wedding that I worked, like, oh my goodness, you need to work with her. That would cost me nothing but my time. And I think some people think that marketing has to come with these big dollar signs next to it. And really, I think it's a lot of work, but it doesn't have to come with a high price tag. I don't want to say there's no excuses, but everything you're talking about here are things that, everyone could be doing, but a lot of people aren't doing them. And they stay quiet and they wonder why business isn't coming their way.
And they're not trying to interact with the community around them. Some people would love to help, right? You just have to interact. You have to show enthusiasm and genuine connection. You just have to get out there. Yeah, it's easy to say that, but I really think goes a long way. Yeah.
Oh, so here we are, 2025. You're doing event design, planning, and of course the flowers, of course, are an integral part. Mm-hmm. So what has fundamentally changed from the beginning? Like, say, when you were, I think you mentioned to me that you worked at a florist, right? In the very beginning, when you recognized that this was a passion for you. So here you are there, and now here you are here. And you've spoken about a lot of things, but is there one thing that stands out to you that has changed or that has evolved?
I would say our platform, the social media in general, it's a huge integral part of any business, and even like personal, right? If I had worked at that flower store now, I wish that I took some videos. Well, I didn't think of that. So
yeah, imagine showing that before and after.
in 2025, we document everything. Like, I take videos of my coffee. I probably would have documented making a spiral bouquet for the first time, and imagine the storytelling that could come from that. But it's social media, and it's just documenting everything and people want to see. They want to see who the face is behind a business, how the business is run, what it looks like behind the scenes, all of it. They want to see. They want to have a personal connection. There are creators who don't even talk about their business. They're on TikTok, and people just follow them for the pure enjoyment of, hearing this person talk. but they know they run this business on the side. Like, there are just so many different ways to see this and so many different ways that people connect. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's true too, because I think a lot of personality types might say, oh my God, I don't want to be on TikTok. I'm not funny. I can't dance. I can't do whatever. But there's people who are demonstrating something or showing something that is absolutely within their wheelhouse of what they're comfortable with. So you don't have to be doing something outlandish. You can do something true to your personality. Or I always felt that, again, I don't mean to talk so much about me, but some of what we do is being, I hate to say an actor, but not in some terrible way. If you're a shy person or an introvert, pretend that it's a role, like you're playing the role of vendor, and you need to be out there talking to people and being on your socials and doing the things to market
That's
your business.
very helpful. Yeah, I get camera shy sometimes. I wish you told me in the beginning. That would have been great. But that is a great advice. I think we're nailing it, but that is some great advice. That just play the role, whatever you need to do to help you get out there. But it's also finding this is important, I think, finding your ideal client in everything that you say. Because, for example, and that's big for everything, like, finding your brand voice and image and the message you're trying to convey, but like finding your ideal client. Because these people on, TikTok, making TikToks and not talking about their business. Yeah, but they're talking to their ideal clients. So for example, there's this influencer who owns a bikini line, and she never, rarely she'll show what they're making, but sometimes she'll just talk about things that a girl her age could relate to. Let's talk about boys. And she's just attracting, and it's a very simple example. She's attracting her ideal clients. That's all it is. And we have to do the same within our industry. I'm trying to figure that out. So,
yeah, to the outside person looking in, it seems like you're doing it. And I think that, of course, I'm enjoying talking to you. I probably should have had a more linear line with this conversation. But having an ideal client or knowing who your ideal client is it's like right at the top of the list. And there's so many, obviously 1A, 1B, 1C. But knowing who you're talking to, like, if not, then you're talking to no one if you're trying to talk to everybody. So when did you know that was important? How soon in your trajectory did you recognize that?
As soon as I started looking at this as a viable business, I sat down and I took everything that I learned over the years in marketing and sales. I was just reading books. I was just, absorbing information. But the top of that list was finding your ideal client. And then it was like finding, a problem and finding the solution, like things like that. But the top one was like, who are you attracting? And it could be different for everyone. So it could be brides who love classic timeless weddings, or there are some florists that do really colorful weddings. And so they attract like the pop, fun, like splash of pink and like bright, bold, we're not really like that. So finding and it comes with finding your style, but also who you're speaking to. Like, are you trying to book a lot of business and you're saying, hey, I'm an affordable florist, or are you luxury and you're positioning yourself that way? Just things like that to keep in mind.
Yeah, that's a great point. Excellent point. So what was the most influential resource for you in your career so far?
It was other florists and looking at what they were doing. So a big, I think, in like a pivotal part in anyone's life is like who your mentor is. And it's supposed to like take you, mentorship is very important if you can find that right person. And I'm still searching. So it doesn't have to be a one person. You could take inspirational from a multitude of sources. It could be writers, it could be people, not in your industry at all. But for me, I was looking up to, it was some florists that I loved in the industry. And I was just taking inspiration and looking what they were doing and how they were talking and positioning themselves and like what they were making, like what, our style evolved over time because of Pinterest, but also it was me who's like looking, I really love this like Ikebana style. I really love Japanese style. I just loved it. I don't know why. I was looking at like Korean florists as well. So just grabbing inspiration from a multitude of sources. But I wish that people were a bit more open about their process and, less gatekeeping because we're all going through the same struggles. And people have come to me and been like, hey, Maria, like, do you know how to do this? Like a flower show. Hey, do you know how to put flowers and make a skirt of flowers? I'm like, yeah, this is how I did it. But nobody showed me. It's not like people just volunteer this information, but I really feel like we should be more open about it because we're all struggling. We're all looking for ways to do things and to manage.
I agree with you 1,000%. And actually other people, well, that we've worked with over the years, as far as other photographers specifically, and we've always been an open book, because we always said there's a million people getting married. There's a million people that need flowers and need wedding photographers. And there's really enough to go around. I think it's when people have that scarcity mindset and they feel that they can't share because someone else is going to take something of theirs. And that's really not true at all. I feel like the more that we gave over the years, the more we got back. And I think, and I don't mean doing, a million free shoots or whatever. I mean, literally gave information, told people like what we did to get to where we were. And some people passed us right on by too. And that's fantastic to see, someone 10 years younger just get their business off the ground and taking advice like you're talking about from different sources and channeling that into a business that works for themselves. I think if everyone shared, we'd all just rise faster, and like instead of keeping things close to the vest, and that never made sense to me.
Yeah, Melissa, you're completely right about the scarcity mindset. Some people just operate that way, but you just have to put on your blinders and keep going and be open and just share. I want to say that people have left long-lasting impressions on me when they have done that, when they have shared their secrets or just offered help, right? And that's the one thing in the floral industry. There's a lot of labor involved. There's a lot of actual, it's laborious, like lifting of buckets and hanging things up. And then there's right ways of doing a hanging installation. And then there's much harder ways. And if you had just known the easier, the right way with the rigging and that, like, it would have saved you time, effort, pain. We're working, we're putting our blood, sweat, and tears into something. So that could be done much easier. Then why not help? Yeah,
exactly. So those of you that are newer to any industry, just recognize the importance of sharing information, because we're all going to be in the position where we need help. And I think it's just very, powerful or just helpful or whatever the right adjective is, to just help each other. Just good community. And I think that you'll find a lot of people who do, and then you'll find, the group that doesn't. And it's unfortunate. So what does your year look like?
So we do anywhere between 30 to 40 weddings on a slower year, and now going upwards, aiming for 40 to 50. That's, again, dependent on how the year is going, minimums, if they're within Toronto, things like that. We've had some very successful years, like we were featured in People's, Toronto Life, things like that. So that's really like helped the trajectory of the business kind of take off. So super grateful for that. But it can get really busy. Like we can do like 2 weddings a day if they're within the city of Toronto, because we can dispatch more than one team, or we can have the same team like hit several spots. But when they're outside of the greater Toronto area, that's when we have to be a little bit more careful with minimums and things like that, because your team is like out there till like the afternoon, with travel time coming back. So your whole day is booked. So it depends on location a lot. But I'm also aiming for destination weddings in the coming years. So that's a whole week then that you're off in somewhere else. Yeah.
Sounds fun. Anytime we've had to shoot them, I've loved it. But I can imagine from again, we just show up. So it's not, we're not the ones planning. So for us, like, wow, look at this. Where did this magic happen? Like on an island somewhere. And you're the one who has to make that magic happen. So that's crazy when it's a destination wedding. But I'm sure the strategizing and the challenge is a lot of fun. So yeah, I'm sure it'll work out. You put it out there. It seems everything you put out there seems to happen. So.
Thank you.
But if it wouldn't happen if you didn't put it out there, right? And I think people don't recognize that. If you don't start talking about what you want, the chance of it happening is like 0. So start talking. Manifesting, right? Even though manifesting is an overused word, it's what you're doing. If you don't talk about it, if you don't have a financial goal or a number of weddings goal, it's very hard to happen if you don't start putting it out there.
It's not capping yourself on, maybe you'll do 30 weddings, but you'll be more profitable than a 50 wedding year.
Absolutely.
Right? So just not limiting yourself and having to, stay within that boundary. Maybe it's destination weddings, but, maybe it's somewhere you never thought of. Like we're doing a destination wedding in Canada, like Nova Scotia on the east of
Beautiful. Yes.
I mean, I would have never thought of that. It's an island. I am incredibly grateful. I would have never thought of that. That is a destination wedding. You still have to fly in all these vendors and things to an island. So
Yeah,
things like
no, exactly. That is going to have its challenges if you're on an island too. So I imagine.
that, but just not yourself and not limiting in your SEO, in your wording, in your mindset, not limiting yourself to a certain, ideal vision, because it could be so much more.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's how a business grows, right? I mean, if you don't have these ideas and these challenges, like to give yourself to get to that next level. So you're talking about, when I say self-educate, it sounds like you read a lot of books, that you read books about business, probably self-help, philosophy, things like that. How has that helped your business, do you think?
I wish I had more time. I definitely put a lot of time into it when I started. So there's so many resources out there, like this podcast too, like the community that you're building. It doesn't have to be books. It could be even, instead of doom scrolling on Instagram, look up business accounts or follow accounts that bring value to your life. So it doesn't have to be read a book anymore. It doesn't have to be like that. That was a very old school way of doing it. Like I have a whole library of like how to get to the yes, like those books that were the sales books of back in the day. You can find that anywhere. You just have to find the right platform that you enjoy consuming.
Like I like to listen to podcasts while I'm cooking dinner, and I can learn a lot more than sitting and reading a book I don't have that precious time maybe that particular day, but there's always time to listen to even I don't listen to books, but I'm sure that's a great option as well. So speaking of the future, like where do you see yourself? It sounds like you're off with obviously a huge trajectory for 2025. Where do you see yourself in like say 5 years, if that's not too much to ask?
No, thank you. Thank you for your interest. I hope that, I'm not limiting myself by choosing something. It could be flowers, but it could be continuing on with the studio if it makes sense. But it looks like most of my efforts specifically would be focused on planning. So kind of making that shift a little bit into like destination weddings, because it's hard to fly in a florist if you're doing a wedding in Paris, for example. You're probably going to want to choose the vendors there. Local talent, local people, local product, local everything, sustainability. So I think the way that my goals are aligning and my own values, it's probably going to be towards planning. Yeah.
Okay. So what coming up in, let's say in the next few months, like what is something you're excited about? Is there a particular wedding or like a planning component, something big?
Yeah, you know what? It's exactly what we're doing right now. So it's showing up more with ourselves and sharing with the community. I'm seeing a lot of struggle in that field, especially on our end. So it's something that I want to kind of add more value to. Forming a community, helping other florists, helping moms and young women kind of find their niche, or whether it's floristry or I would say I'm an expert in flowers, so I'm going to keep it there. Not planning, not all the vendors. So this podcast is an incredible resource, I think, for people to tap into, where experts in different fields can come and speak like confidently on what they're succeeding in. And I plan on doing a little bit more of that. So I want to share like our flower calculator that we use, that I've perfected.
That intrigued me. Please talk. Do you mind talking a little bit more about that?
Love to. Okay, so there's a lot of waste in the industry, and I know we mentioned sustainability quite a few times. It is very challenging, especially when you're dealing with people's weddings, right? So they don't really care. I mean, some wonderful couples do care, but overall, if it's your wedding day, does it really matter where it comes from? This is your one day to shine. Like if you want that rose, you should get that rose. I am with you. I wholeheartedly agree. So it's hard to be sustainable 99% of the time, especially with floral, especially knowing that most of these flowers are imported. They come from Ecuador and Colombia. Carbon footprint. It's horrible if you think about it. If you really like track like the entire journey of like a box of flowers to get here in front of you at a studio, it's heartbreaking. So I'm trying to do as much as I can to to be sustainable and to also to meet the requirements of these beautiful brides' weddings, right? So I want them to look like how they want it to look, but I also am trying to do things on the back end that I know that we could do better, like floral foam, even though the biodegradable one is more expensive, things like that, to try to kind of offset the cost of importing, which is a carbon footprint. So a lot of that has to do with how much you're ordering. Small things like that make a huge difference. Like if you're bringing in, 5,000 roses and you only use 4,000, that's waste, right? So anything from actual waste to waste flowers, things like that. And not to mention that you're wasting money. So that's your margin, but that's also environmentally destructive. So that being said, it's helped me a lot having a way to calculate flower count for weddings. So I type it into this Excel sheet, and it spits out exactly how many boxes you're ordering and how many stems would be left over if you were to order this much. So it looks at your flower recipe for everything from centerpieces to bouquets, adds it all up together and says, hey, this is your order. And guess what? If you put 5 roses in every centerpiece, you're going to have 20 left over.
It's genius. Wow, that's genius.
And I don't know how other florists do this. I think they just count it out. There is one software that's online, but I don't think a lot of people have it, at their fingertips in an Excel sheet, able to modify it and put in, this is the cost of a rose. This is the cost of a ranunculus. They're not able to maybe change things around however they want to, change the fields of the sheet. So I just find it, I think it's genius, and we've been using it.
Your bottom line must be thanking you for having this, and have, like you said, less waste, which helps the environment, but also helps your bottom line as well as theirs. You're passing, I'm sure, savings on to the couples too, by being a good orderer, being a steward of your inventory.
Yeah. If you're only ordering, let's say roses come in bunches of 25. If you're using only 10 of those roses, the other 15, theoretically, the cost of those centerpieces should be relative to how many you're ordering. So the price of stem theoretically goes up. Price per stem goes up. And I don't think a lot of florists take this in consideration. If you're only using half, that price is going to double, because that's waste. If you're a wedding florist, it's waste. If you have a shop and you're able to sell the remaining roses, sure, no problem. But if you are predominantly a wedding florist and you operate per weekend, you have one wedding a weekend, those flowers are going to the garbage. So
that's a tragedy already. Yeah. I'm sure does it make you sad when you bring the arrangements? This is just a personal question. When it's the end of an event and you have all this stuff coming back into your truck or van, and then what happens? It must be so sad.
Well, why didn't you just give them away? This is garbage. We had a bride who had attached a charm to her bridal bouquet, and it was her grandmother's charm from when she had. It was a keepsake, and she lost the bouquet. She just threw it out at the end. I don't know, something. But we took the garbage because we have to do tear down. So we were looking through bags and bags of garbage. At least we had it at the studio, and I found it for her.
You did find? Oh my God! What an above and beyond service. She must have been so grateful.
She was. I sent her the whole bouquet the next day. I'm like, why did you take? But I'm crying. This was going to the garbage.
Oh my God! Thank goodness. Another one of those examples of going above and beyond for your clients. That's something she's not soon going to forget. And she'll tell all her friends how wonderful.
Yeah, if she did, it was incredible. It did.
Sure.
Yeah, it went somewhere. I'm so glad. Yeah. More online resources for the community, being able to share more with other florists. Not putting people out. So I see all these flower courses, and it's one thing to teach, and I understand, but to share resources and it's an arm and a leg. I mean, how is anybody ever going to get ahead, right? These outrageous prices, and it's stressful. So trying to do that, but in a more a liberal way, creating community, and so more focus on that. And the weddings that are ahead. Again, that Nova Scotia wedding, that's exciting. It's a summer wedding, but they say like that.
asked this question. I guess I asked this question to every guest, and I'm going to read it sort of.
Mhm.
So, I mean, as we've said a few times here, we're focused on demonstrating to other industry professionals that, with this podcast, that you can have a successful business, that you can build a long-term sustainable business. And when I say sustainable, I mean it in a different way, sustainable for the long term, that you've laid a foundation, you're building on it, and your business is growing and it's evolving. And that's what I mean. I think that's powerful for other people to see, because I think there's a lot of people who feel that they're stuck or can't break free of whatever's holding them back. Can you give our listeners one piece of advice that helped you get from where you started to where you are now? And I know we may have covered this, but one final.
Yeah, just in case. Being consistent and adjusting the sales if something isn't working. So like you said, what was that mindset that you mentioned? People put too much effort and they feel like they can't let go of something because they've invested so much.
Yeah, I think it's sunk cost fallacy. Like, the more you put into something, you can't pull away from it because you've put time or money into it.
Yes. So not falling a victim to that and the negative self-talk and all of that, the imposter syndrome and waiting. There's a lot of advice, right, that I would give, but a lot of it is knowing. And actually, I got this piece of advice from somebody who's much more experienced than me, but it was looking at it from a least emotional standpoint, the least emotional standpoint that you can. And from a business standpoint, is this working or not? Pull out. And then when you get older and, more experienced, I think you'll be able to assess something before you even do it, right? So is this going to be profitable? Is this going to be worth my time? It's going to be a no. Not being the no person, but knowing when to say no sometimes. Yeah.
Great advice. Excellent.
Is that good? Yeah.
Yeah, that's excellent. Oh, that's great. That's really good. So again, thank you so much for being here over time. Can you tell people where to find you? Please go ahead.
Yes. We're online. Our website is derevesstudio.com, but all our socials are at DerêvesCo. So very simple, DerêvesCo, DerêvesCo. So that's it. We'll be on Instagram a little bit more and sharing more throughout the year. And I'm working on TikTok, and it's getting there, but slowly.
It's my goal too. We'll watch each other then, build our TikTok following. I wanted to ask you where your name came from. How did you decide on your name?
Oh, it was actually, it's funny because it was French. It was flowers.
It's French, yeah.
It really goes hand in hand with you being in Paris, but it was supposed to be flowers of dreams, and then Rêve of dreams. So,
that's great.
But we combined it to make it an English name because people felt bad for butchering it. So, but yeah, that's what it was. So now it's just
perfect.
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over. But I've been meaning to ask you that. So thank you so much for the answer. Thank you so much for being here. It was so much fun, and you're inspiring, truly inspiring. I know a lot of people are going to find huge inspiration from everything you said, and I so appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it, Melissa. Thank you.
And I'll put all the links in the show notes and link to all your stuff. And anyway, thank you so, so much. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you found these marketing insights from Maria as inspiring as I did. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and share it with others who might benefit. Until next time, keep striving for success in your business.